Conti, bella palla per Rebic, Ibra, Rebic, il tiro, goal!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Torgrud.
What's up, guys? Glad to be back. Obviously, Maddie's not with us. We told you that last week, but we have a very special guest today. Ollie, I'll let you introduce him.
Yeah, so delighted to have Patrick with us, Patrick Kendrick, commentator extraordinaire. I'm sure you'll all recognise his voices from doing Serie, sort of international commentary service and stuff like that. But delighted to have you on board.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, great to be here. Looking forward to chatting.
Yes, so I'm going to start with a couple of questions about sort of your career personally as a commentator. And the reason for that is when I was doing my degree at university, sports journalism, I was like 50-50 and whether I wanted to go into the writing side, whether I wanted to go into doing commentary or doing live services, radio, whatever it might have been. What sort of took you down that path?
For me, it was always a long-held ambition, really. I think ever since I was a teenager, I was probably about 14 or 15, and you know, I've always been someone who's quite hard to shut up, to be honest. And I remember I used to just play sports at school with my friends, and just constantly talking, commentating. You know, all the usual cliches. I've heard it a lot from other commentators and broadcasters. You know, they would almost be commentating on themselves playing football in the back garden, and I would do that. And I think the sort of the straw that broke the camel's back was when I was playing a tennis match against a friend of mine at school, and we were playing a 5-set match. I was 2 sets down. He was much better than me, and then I basically started doing a live running commentary over the points, which is sort of the worst thing you can do. You know, if you ever watch tennis commentary, you'll notice the one time they don't talk is during the rally. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine what it was like me talking mid-rally just as my opponent's sort of taking a shot. So it's similar really to, I guess, someone coughing as you're midway through your backswing at golf. But long story short, I won it by 3-2 in probably the most disgraceful piece of sportsmanship ever seen. And I think that probably was an indication that I was going to go into it, but it was a sort of a roundabout route because I ended up studying languages at university. So it was always something I had in mind, but I took a slightly more scenic route, shall we say, to getting into football commentary. Yeah.
It's funny you should mention that about commentating on yourself in the back garden, because I used to have goalposts out in the back garden and do exactly that. Like I'd be out, it's dark now at 10:06 our time, and I used to be out well into darkness, used to use the lights and stuff and pretend it was a floodlit game. I used to love doing exactly that.
Super,
But yeah, and then you mentioned about doing languages. What's it been like being an interpreter? Because I've always found it fascinating. Like I've seen one of your pictures where you're next to Guardiola doing some interpreting. I've always found that kind of fascinating. So how did that come about? Was that purely just through doing languages?
Pretty much, yeah. I studied French and Italian undergraduate level, and then I went and lived in southern Italy for a year, southern France for a year, and then having taught English for a couple of years whilst I was on the continent, I was trying to decide what to do, and I had a sort of negative experience trying to interpret. It was dreadful, really. I was living in southern Italy. A friend of mine was part of this fair trade organization. He was a volunteer there. They had this guy from India come over to talk to them about his artisanal wooden toys, and he said to me, "Oh, you speak English and Italian. Can you interpret for us?" And I knew nothing as to the sort of tricks of the trade. I didn't have a pen and paper. Even if I did so, my Italian was all over the place, and it was quite a humbling experience. And I even got to the stage where it was quite hard to cut through his thick Indian accent. And to be honest, I've never had any issues with understanding English speakers from anywhere across the world. So I think the nerves played a part there. And ironically, it was that friend who a year later said to me, "Have you ever thought about training as an interpreter?" And I thought he was winding me up because, it was such a humiliating experience. But I went and then studied to become a conference interpreter. And as soon as I became aware of football and sports interpreting, it was a case of how can I break into this? And again, a sort of long process. I think I did my first my first European game was a Europa League game between Newcastle and Bordeaux when Alan Pardew was in charge. So that would have been the latter part of 2012. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And more recently I've been lucky with draws more than anything. And this time last year, as soon as I saw the draw, Napoli, Liverpool, and Atalanta, Manchester City. I'm based in Milan, so Atalanta were playing at San Siro. That was a dream come true with Guardiola, and then Klopp prior to that in Naples in a very sweaty conference room that he kept commenting on. And they were both very complimentary, which was nice, and a real challenge as well. And I like it because I've never been one for sort of asking celebrities for selfies, but it's the best thing really when you sit at the top table alongside them, because invariably you find a photo of them where you're in it as well, and it's quite nice to be able to use that. And I like the idea that they're there to do their job and I'm there to do my job. So no, it's been wonderful to combine the passion for languages and the passion for football.
Yeah, honestly fascinating. Well, I saw that picture of you next to Guardiola. I was like, I never really put two and two together and thought, yeah, these people are up on the table, and it's as if the media are asking the questions to them. What's the best game you've commentated on?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. What is the best game I've commentated on?
I was looking on your website and I saw that you'd done the our game against Rio Ave, the one with the 120.
Oh, yeah. No, that was fantastic. I actually did that.
That was a late night.
Yeah, no, that was an expensive cab home. Actually, I was hoping to get the last metro, but it just kept running and running, to be honest. But it's that was an incredible game. It's quite hard to narrow that down. I remember very early on doing Serie A, there was a game, and I need to remember who the opposition was. I think it might have been Bologna, but it was a Torino game in that great season when they were playing under Gianpiero Ventura, and they had Alessio Cerci, once of Milan, I think. And
less said the better about him.
Exactly, and Ciro Immobile, and they came back from 1-0 down to win 2-1, and they were both incredible goals. Immobile picked out the top corner, and Cerci smashed one in as well, and that really stuck in the mind, just because the goals were so good and they were two late goals. But the way Serie A's going now, I mean, you almost get a game every week that would top that, to be honest. I mean, you only need to watch Lazio play, and it's just absolutely incredible. But so I think that, although I enjoy also the showpiece games, I've been lucky enough to do the last two Coppa Italia finals. So the Lazio win over Atalanta was good. Less so the Napoli win over Juventus, although for them that's always a special game, and it's nice to do a game that finishes on penalties. But it was a weird one, obviously behind closed doors. And then the Super Cup, actually, the Super Cup, Lazio's win over Juventus is a good one, because it had that Cataldi free kick. I mean, the game was won, but that absolutely made sure of it. So in terms of significance, I like those games, and they're easier to remember. But that's a very good question. That's something I'm going to ponder. And the next time, it doesn't help your podcast, I apologize. But the next time I'm asked that, I'm definitely going to have a podium, I think, of answers. But that's one of the better ones. Yeah.
You touched on it there about how it's a bit weird not having fans in the stadium. Does that have quite a big effect on the way that you commentate on games? Because I noticed that when you watch the broadcasts and stuff, there's a lot of references to the fans, the way the fans are, either you can feel the palpable tension if, let's say, Milan are a goal down at home at San Siro, versus, absolute rapturous scenes and all that kind of stuff. Does it just kind of take away from the spectacle of it all?
It does. It's different. I think it's hugely relevant, and much depends on where you're doing the broadcast from, because I probably shouldn't shatter too many industry secrets, but these days, not all games are done from the stadium as an outside broadcast. Many games are done what we call off tube, so from a studio. But when you're doing an outside broadcast and the fans are there, obviously you can feed off that energy, and you get a very sort of tangible barometer as to what the mood is. And how things can change. I know that a lot has been made of the fact that this young Milan side has been thriving, perhaps because there's not that same pressure on them, the weight of expectation of such a storied club. I think there's probably something in that, but I think that's probably doing a disservice as well to Pioli and the work that he's done. But it's definitely relevant, and even from a technical standpoint, in the way that I will commentate on a match. So the general rule of thumb is radio commentary, you talk all the time, you paint the picture, naturally the listener has nothing to work with. TV is all about adding to the pictures and just accompanying the images. And one of the biggest pieces of feedback I've got from all over the place, various clients, has always been let the game breathe. Less is more, particularly when a goal goes in. Typically try and get the goal scorer's name out, say a line which is either memorable or significant or sums up the state of play, and then allow a pause and let the crowd noise tell the story. But I've noticed I've had to talk a lot more, because otherwise it's almost like you're on the radio and you're filling in dead air. The one advantage to it has been, and this helps with being an Italian speaker, has been the effects microphone pick up a lot of what's being said down by the technical area, and that's been fascinating. I mean, I did Atalanta against Bologna, I think it was the back end of last season, and Sinisa Mihajlovic had a big Barney with Gasperini, which resulted in the latter getting sent off, and that was fascinating. At one stage, I think Mihajlovic, it was almost like I don't know, like a it sort of reminded me of a royal figure. Take him away. He basically, Mihajlovic basically said, "Yeah, get him out of here," sort of thing. He was really, really winding him up. Got to Gasperini. I mean, Gasperini has a bit of a hair trigger temper anyway. Not that Mihajlovic is shrinking violet by any means. And he got him sent off, and Mihajlovic got a yellow card. So I think it was not dissimilar to when you see two players almost going head to head, and one knowing that if they can exaggerate the content, a bit like we saw in the game between Lazio and Inter when we had the two players, Sensi and Immobile, both sent off there, and that was ludicrous, really. Vidal and I think it was Patrick, the two players that really exaggerated the contact.
Yeah.
And it was almost that extrapolated to the technical area, and it was just fascinating to see the dynamic, because, occasionally you do see a bit of a spat on the technical area, but you never get an insight into what it's all about. But basically, Mihajlovic took exception to the fact that Gasperini was moaning about his players' challenges and saying that they should be booked. And then the irony is that Mihajlovic ends up asking for Gasperini to get sent off and succeeded in doing so. So that's been one unexpected benefit from the games being played behind closed doors. But I hope it's going to be a case of, like everything with this pandemic, as and when, if and when, almost, I'm tempted to say, that's striking a very pessimistic tone, but as and when we get back to a semblance of normality, I think it's going to be great to have the fans back. It's just going to be a huge lift for the supporters themselves, first and foremost, then for the players, and finally we're way down the list. But it's going to be strange actually commentating on a match again with the crowd noise and seeing that sort of reaction, because occasionally we almost have to interpret on behalf of the fans what they would be experiencing based on the scoreline or based on something that's happened.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we've said it before on here, but this whole football behind closed doors, like, we're playing our best football, Milan as a club, for probably the best part of 7 or 8 years, let's say, and there's nobody there to experience it. And that in itself makes it all feel a little bit watered down. But one thing that I have enjoyed is exactly what you said about being able to pick up on certain things that are happening that you otherwise wouldn't be able to hear over the crowd noise. So even if you only speak a basic level of Italian, you can pick up what the players are saying to each other from the effects mics and what the coaches are saying to each other. And I seem to be able to write, 1 or 2 articles a week about what the cameras have picked up and these conversations that were being held. There was one in particular where Pioli was shouting at Giacomelli, the referee, saying like, "Bravo Giacomelli," because he kept getting decisions wrong, and that caused his assistant to be sent off. And there was one where Romagnoli was shouting at his teammates and picked up on exactly what he was saying. So it's stuff like that you wouldn't normally get. But apart from that, I don't like it. I want to be able to go back to a game. That's the even to experience it as a fan.
Well, who knows? Maybe Milan will take the title race down to the wire and they'll let the supporters back into San Siro on the penultimate day of the season. I can't remember the fixture list, whether Milan are at home in the last game of the season or not, but you never know.
If we needed to win, then we'd bottle it. We were meant to be going to the last home game of last season. Me and Anthony, we had tickets to go over for the Cagliari home game, and it was going to be Zlatan's big send-off, and that obviously he's ended up staying an extra year, but we had a trip planned involving London and all sorts, and then this came along and ruined it all. But who knows, we might get to do it all next April, or at least I hope. And
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I did the reverse fixture there, I think, which was Zlatan's first goal since coming back.
Yeah, that 2-0
Yeah, he
win.
scored one and had one disallowed, I seem to recall.
Yeah,
But,
and I think he might have got an assist for Leao as well. But yeah, that was a nice finish. And I've got to ask, even though they're the enemy, what was it like working for Inter TV?
a great experience, fantastic. So I had done some work with Inter via an agency. I'd translated the English version of their website for many years. So I had some contacts there, and living in Milan, I often went to games accredited with Inter, and I'd interpreted for them during the ill-fated Frank de Boer reign, which was
I enjoyed that, actually.
I'm sure you did.
Good
One of the
memories.
lowest ebbs in recent years.
Yeah.
So the irony was, I'd been living in Milan. I'd just moved back to Portugal, where I'd previously worked for Benfica, and I'd been in Portugal. I just convinced my girlfriend to move with me, and we'd been there for 2 weeks. And I got a call from a guy I knew at Inter, and they were creating this new intermedia house, which has obviously made a big splash. And he said, "Are you still in Milan? Do you want a job?" I said, "I wish you'd phoned me 2 weeks earlier." So yeah, it took 2.5 months to get my stuff together, and then we moved back. So I was there December 2017 till the end of the 2018-19 season, 18 months. No, really good experience. I got to do so much. I was doing presenting in Italian, presenting in English. I got to do some interpreting, some commentary as well, and a couple of really memorable Europa League trips. Went to Vienna and Frankfurt. It wasn't, I mean, there were successful seasons by Inter standards at that time, in that, Spalletti got them back into the Champions League the first season I was there, and then, just about scraped in both years, really, winning at Lazio on the final day of the 17-18 season, and then beating Empoli on the 18-19 seasons. So I remember at the time, if I'm completely frank, and Inter know this, and my former bosses and colleagues know this, I did become frustrated at a lack of variety. I'd always worked as a freelancer, and so whilst it was great working for a club, and a prestigious club, I did miss being able to do a game here and then a game there, or go abroad and do other work. So it was great, but now looking back on it, I've gone on to do a lot more journalistic work, thanks to what I learned at Inter TV, that I maybe didn't necessarily give enough credit for at that time. So yeah, it's made me a much more comfortable interviewer. I just understand a lot more about how TV works, and it's you do really start to identify with the club. But it's amazing how it's just a switch. As soon as I left, any sort of Inter bias that was there immediately went away. And I've done some work now as a freelancer for Milan over the last few months as well. So no, it was a really positive experience, and I would recommend it to anyone working for a club and for a club channel. Is fantastic experience, and you get to know the coaching staff to a certain extent, the players to a certain extent. I know it's a lot more standoffish now. Conte's come in and has been really uptight about how much access even the club media get, whereas it was slightly more family feel when Spalletti was there. I mean, he used to come into our news desk and joke around, and he was a wonderful character. So no, fond memories of him, certainly.
You mentioned your bias when you're commentating. Do you ever have to commentate for a team you do support, and how do you hide that bias while doing it?
Well, I'm a Southampton fan, and the only time I've ever done any Southampton commentaries was right at the start of my career, when I actually did some games in French, funnily enough. Luckily, I don't think there's any trace of those matches, because it would make me cringe if I ever had to listen back to them. But no, there's no danger of that. And I think my dad will be sad to hear this, but I just feel that my support for Southampton has really waned as my career's progressed, to be honest. Symptomatic of living in Italy, and I've been here now on off since 2013, and not going to St Mary's week in, week out. But also what you'll find in England, and that's always my go-to reference point, is a lot of the most prominent commentators tend to support lower league teams, and there's never really a conflict of interest there. And those that don't probably make no reference or no allusions at all as to who their where their loyalties lie. But I honestly can say that if I were to do a Portsmouth game, it wouldn't bother me whatsoever. There's never been any indication. It's just it's like any profession. It's a case of compartmentalizing things. In the same way, if you went to an office job and maybe you're having a tough time of things at home, then you try and really switch off and focus on what the task is at hand. And our role is for 90 plus minutes to make sure that we give us accurate portrayal of what the events are and don't allow any bias to sneak in. That doesn't mean that that you're not accused of it, and that's come up a bit this season. It hadn't really been the case before, but I did Roma's opener at Verona, that game that ended goalless, and then they ended up losing it with a walkover. And Roma weren't very good, and someone took offence to the way I'd called the game on Twitter, but they sort of contradicted themselves as well. They said, "Oh, he's a classic one of those Roma lover / hater," and I felt like replying and saying, "Well, which is it?" I mean, I don't give these people the time of day, but it was interesting, and I only saw the tweet because this person started following me on Twitter, so I just clicked on their timeline. I saw the first thing was about me. It was my name, but it wasn't tagged in it. So yeah, bias has never been an issue for me, and I think I'm still on the way up, hopefully, but a lot of the more prominent commentators often say the best thing you can be accused of is being biased by an even split of both sets of supporters. It shows that you've done a good job, and it shows really just how irrational, irrational the supporters are. So there you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not surprised it was a Roma fan. They're not known for being the most rational, but that's probably for another time. Football-wise, what do you think about Milan at the moment? What do you think about the job Pioli's doing? What do you think about the way that the squad's evolving under the new owners? We've had them for 2 years now, but do you reckon that we have actually got a shot at the title?
I don't want to pour cold water on the title shot, but I would take it step by step. I would try and focus on improving upon last season. I think I looked earlier at Milan were 12 points off the top 4, so you need to find another 4 wins from somewhere. And the first thing you need to do is re-establish the team in the Champions League. It's one thing being in the Europa League. Admittedly, it's 2 consecutive qualifications for the Europa League, lest we forget, the club did that plea bargain, didn't they, to sort of waive their participation the previous year. So I think a good season would be a top 4 finish and then a run in the Europa League, just to remind the world of Milan's European dimension, which has always been its main calling card, ever since all the glory under Berlusconi and that period. But I'm really impressed. I enjoy watching Milan play, which is the first thing. And I think that has to be hugely encouraging for supporters, because for many years it was turgid and the playing staff was not befitting of the Rossoneri at all. So now you have a good group of young players that are only going to get better. The system suits them down to the ground. I know that people aren't sold on Romagnoli. I'm a huge fan of his personally. And I think Milan, and I think he's got better playing alongside Simon Kjær as well. As long as you can live with the soap opera with the Raiola Donnarumma stuff every year, then you've got a goalkeeper for another 15 years. And he's come on leaps and bounds. And then it's Ibrahimovic, really. He astonishes everyone and you can't really believe it, and then you start to... I'll be honest, I when I looked at Ibrahimovic, I thought, right, okay, flat track bully, to use a cricketing term. He's he'll just score goals for fun in lesser quality leagues. And I was doing a disservice to Ligue 1 when I thought he was doing that at Paris Saint-Germain. I was doing a disservice to MLS, but he scored goals in the Premier League. He's scoring goals in Serie A. I'm certain that if he went back to La Liga or if he went to Bundesliga, then he would comfortably score 15 to 20 goals. It's his hunger and his desire, and he seems to be relishing the fact that he is not only the top scorer and the leader, but just that he's almost the man that is bringing through this crop of really exciting young players. I mean, I love that Benacer, Kessié axis. It's pretty telling that Tonali has not really seen that much game time. when the whole story this summer was Milan have managed to get one over Inter by signing Italy's best up-and-coming midfielder. And top of the league, 5 wins from 7, still unbeaten. I think it's 19 in the league without defeat. Now, a huge test coming up. I don't know when you guys are publishing this, but the Napoli game is going to be so interesting to see, and the subplot as well with Gattuso there. And I think he has a point to prove, because I'm a fan of his. I interviewed him in January for UEFA, and he really impressed me tactically. I had to say, I just thought he was a sort of manager, Mr. Motivator before that. And again, he changed my mind. I've been impressed with the job he's done at Napoli. I thought he did a good job with Milan. They were defensively solid and only just missed out in the top 4, lest we forget. But Pioli, I mean, he's been brilliant. He's so humble, but has that steely determination. I think he speaks very well. The work I've been doing for Milan has been quite a lot of interpreting of his pre-match press conferences for the apps. I've not done it for a couple of weeks because of other work, but I always think he's very intelligent in his answers. You can clearly see that he's thought things through and conducted himself with such dignity with all of that Ranić stuff going on. And so I'm hugely encouraged as a neutral. It's a cliche, but it's the truth. The Italian game is much better with the strong big 3. And you can say what you like about Napoli and Roma and latterly Atalanta and Lazio, but there are 3 big clubs in Italy. I mean, we're lucky. We traditionally had the 7 sisters, but those 3 clubs, the Milan clubs and Juventus, are huge institutions, and the bulk of Italians support one of those 3 clubs. And if we can get those 3 in the top 3, year in, year out, challenging for trophies, I think Serie A will only benefit from it. So I really hope, I mean, in terms of a title challenge, Milan's approach needs to be try and maintain this. I mean, it's not rocket science. Maintain the unbeaten run as long as possible, and just keep an eye on where they are with regards to the top 4. And then if you come into April and May and you see that you're within a result or 2 of a title challenge, then relish it. But getting too hung up now on whether Milan can challenge for the Scudetto would be a mistake, if you ask me. And I think the club need to remember where they're coming from, where they are in this project with Pioli, and I think they need to continue to build. And they need another centre forward. Definitely need another centre forward. I mean, when I saw Lollo Colombo play, I mean, no, not particularly. I mean, strangely
he's
enough,
18.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I just don't think.
And strangely enough, the ideal person that they would need for this situation would be someone like Cutrone, if you ask me. I think he would be someone who'd be very willing to come on, take his chance, and very occasionally come in when Ibrahimovic sits things out. So they're going to have to resolve that, because I know Rebic can play centre forward. I don't think that's his best position. I don't think Leao is going to play there either. So that's one for them to look at, and I think January would be the time to bring someone in. But overall, sorry, I know that was a very long answer. All that to say that hugely encouraged.
Yeah, I think it'd be fair to say we're the same, wouldn't it? I am a bit nervous about Sunday's game. I know you mentioned it there, but I think Gattuso's kind of got something to prove against us. The team that ultimately pushed him out the door when we'd made a big step forward from the season before. It's funny, as you mentioned, Gattuso kind of got this reputation as being pretty much 75% man management and just being able to light a rocket up certain players and put an arm around certain players. I think Pioli had probably the opposite reputation when he arrived with us, in that he was the arm around the players and stuff, and he was the one who was going to be sort of more of a psychiatrist than a head coach. He was going to repair what was a damaged group. But the way that he's evolved tactically and the football that we're playing now is really good. I'm really enjoying it. And long may it continue. I think probably a title challenge is a step too far this season. I think the last couple of results that we've had, 2 draws at home, we led 3 times against Roma. We were 2-0 down early on against Verona. Might not get as lucky the next time that we're 2-0 down. We'll see. We'll see what happens, but not getting too ahead of ourselves, are we?
Yeah, I'm nervous. That's all I got right now. I'm nervous about it. You know, I've been saying this whole season, if you're in first, your goal should be to stay there. But obviously, realistically, top four is the ultimate goal. So I want to win and I want to challenge for the title. But if it doesn't happen, as long as we get top four, I'm happy.
Yeah, top four do me, and then that's where the project's going. They've made that clear. Ibra keeps talking about this sort of unspoken goal that we have, and I think reading between the lines, we know that he's here because he thinks we've got a shot at winning the title, but top four would be pretty big. It would put us back in the elite competition. It would give us access to the revenues that we've been really, really missing. And as you say, if that then sort of reestablishes the big three, then I think Italian football will be better for it, because when Milan and Inter were not competing with Juve, the league struggled. The league suffered for it, even when Roma had good teams and were finishing second, when Napoli nearly won the Scudetto that year and just kind of fell apart, it just wasn't quite the same. And I hope that we're on the right kind of path here. That's all I will say. But yeah, that's it. I think that's everything. So thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, gents. Always a
follow
pleasure.
Patrick on Twitter, at Patrick Kendrick on Twitter. And yeah, hopefully we'll get you on at some point later in the season when we're talking about how we're 10 points clear at the top of the league.
Wishful thinking, I think. But yeah, I'm always happy to come on. So enjoy Sunday's game. And yeah, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Cheers. Thank you very much to Patrick for joining us there. We mentioned it towards the end of our little segment with him. We've got a pretty big game coming up this weekend. International break done and dusted. Well, not really, because there's some games tonight, as we're recording tonight on Wednesday. I've read actually somewhere that there's been over 30 plus COVID cases during this current international break, which to me is enough evidence that it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Whether say England playing a friendly before we had 2 Nations League games, it's like that asking for trouble, man. I just don't think
Italy hasn't been hit harder this time around. I mean, obviously the last international break they were ravaged for a bit, but for Mancini to call it 41 players is just absolutely ridiculous for, like you said, friendly games. I mean, I think one of them was a Nations League or a qualifier or something relevant.
Yeah, it's 2 Nations Leagues, yeah.
Just, I don't think any of it's necessary right now. We could go into the reasoning behind why UEFA wants these games or FIFA wants these games, but it's... Yeah, we don't need to get into that right now.
Napoli away on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be honest, I'll start off. I can't really put anything quantifiable on it, whether it's, bad results that we've had at the San Paolo, whether it's that we've shown our vulnerability a bit in the last sort of 4 games, whether it's the fact that we're coming up against another team that's banging form. I'm nervous about this one. I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, me too. And that's weird. Because I'm the guy who always says
You're Mr. 2 dubs. Yeah.
And since I was completely embarrassed for that claim last week out, I'm a little tentative to do it again. But it's a combination of things. Like Patrick mentioned earlier, Gattuso has something to prove against us, obviously. They're banging form. We're kind of dipping. We obviously still haven't lost, but we're dipping in form. It's a team that we rarely get results against, at least in their stadium. And it's cagey, man. We had 9 of our 11 starters called up for international duty. So even though we all needed a rest, they didn't get it. Zlatan did, which is a huge boost for us. And Teo did, which is a huge boost for us. But the rest, it's a little cagey. I think Gigio will still be fine. I think some of them will be good. But I think Romagnoli's really going to suffer for not being able to stay home and readapt to our... Yeah, it was foolish. He needs to readapt to how we line up now. He's still playing how we did prior to his injury, and it's changed, and it's created a hole for us. Since he's come back, we've had a hole in our defense. It's nothing against him. He's a fantastic defender. It's just he hasn't adapted in time. So he needs more time to readjust. But there are some pluses. Napoli's got some injuries. Bakayoko supposedly going to miss the game. That new star striker of theirs, Victor Osimhen, whatever.
Yeah, that's better than earlier.
Yeah, the not German guy whose name I keep trying to make German.
Osimhen.
Yeah, he's going to be
like
a dislocated soldier. Yeah, he's fantastic. And I would actually love us to go for him, if at all possible, when Zlatan's out.
But we were linked with him last summer when it was sort of 50-50 whether Zlatan would be renewing. He was one of the guys, along with like Milik, along with one guy that I'm determined to mention in a question. I'm just looking now because Italy are playing tonight against Bosnia in the Nations League. Romagnoli and Tonali have been named on the bench, which is good, which means that none of them will. He started a game, did Tonali, but has now had a bit of rest, which is good. And Donnarumma obviously starts, but fatigue for goalkeepers. Although it still applies mentally, I think it's better for goalkeepers to stay sharp. So I'm happy in the way that he's starting.
And I don't think is going to be too big of a goal threat. So
interestingly, Rade Krunic is starting at left wing for Bosnia.
That is
so
interesting.
This is going to be a difficult one. As you said, there's a couple of absentees for them, which I think are big. I think Bakayoko, the way he's settled in, is exactly how I thought under a Gattuso team, just sitting in front of that back four, mopping up, winning balls back, doing everything that he did so well for us. And he's been massive for them because they've been winning a lot of games to nil. They're coming into this off the back of winning 1-0 at Bologna, which was a pretty good result, I guess. But the guy who's been sticking him away, Victor Osimhen, is not going to be fit. So that's positive news. Obviously, they've got Milik who can step up, and they've still got goal threat like Insigne. Hervin Lozano, who always seems to have a good game against us. So there's still plenty of threat there, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, he just scored for Mexico, I think, yesterday or the day prior.
He did an interview, didn't he, as well, where he basically said he wants to play for Barcelona. It's like, you should probably get in the Napoli 11 first.
I did not hear that, but interesting.
Yeah, he's done it before. It's really strange.
I feel like that's not an outlandish dream for really any player.
You wouldn't be happy if one of our players said it. Let me put it to you that way.
No. I would not be happy at all. I'm just saying it isn't unexpected to hear a player say they want to play for Barcelona.
Mexican as well.
Exactly.
Like, the Spanish-speaking world.
Yep. I live really close to Mexico, and most of them wear Barca jerseys around town. So it doesn't surprise me at all that the star of the Mexican national team wants to play for Barca.
Yeah. So starting lineup, I'll go through it position by position. You can interject if you disagree.
Okay.
Donnarumma in goal.
Disagree.
Right back, I'm sticking with Calabria. I don't see any reason to throw Dalot in there. I don't think Conte's 100% fit yet. I think he needs a couple more appearances off the bench. And Kalulu may have died.
He was in pictures of practice yesterday, actually.
Oh, he was, yeah.
Yeah.
He was, yeah. Talking about loaning him out, actually, in January, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's no use having a 20-year-old kid who's such a bright prospect and not playing him at all.
I was really excited for him. Before we got Dalot, I thought he was going to take that spot, and obviously now he's been relegated to the Primavera. So,
mm-hmm.
Oh well.
And then we'll play Kier, obviously. No problems on that front. Romagnoli or Gabbia?
I mean, who do I want or who do I think's going to start?
Same as me. I think we're going to say the same thing. I would start Gabbia.
But Romagnoli will.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. If he's fit enough to be on the bench, something tells me that he's probably recovered from his flex, or otherwise they'd have sent him home.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they wouldn't, because fuck knows what's going on at Coverciano. But Gabbia obviously has come back from COVID, but he was in a really good run. We kept clean sheets in our first 3 Serie A games, and him and Kier looked to be forming a very good partnership.
Romagnoli, he didn't play any games internationally. Like, obviously he's named to the bench for tonight, but he hasn't played. Yeah, so maybe he doesn't make an appearance at all, and if that's the case, he comes back, we do just rest him again.
I would. You don't risk a flexor because that's when they can turn into side strains and other things that keep you out for weeks and weeks. So I wouldn't risk it anyway, but would you go for the fresher player and we'll come on to that with some of the other positions, but would you just pick the fresher player? I probably would. But it's going to be Romagnoli. He's the club captain. If he's fit enough to play, he'll play.
He's going to play, but I do think Gabbia fits this game better.
We do seem to play better with with Gabbia playing because he does better with a higher line as well. But I also agree with what Patrick's saying.
Who's going to be Napoli's attacking threat with Victor out? Who's going to be the
I think Insigne and Milik are pretty good.
I think Milik will probably get the nod.
It's a good team. Zielinski, he always also seems to have a good game against us. I really like him.
I think it's the right call, man. I think Napoli's got fast forwards, and having the high line that we play with Gabbia would benefit us, because if everyone else is playing high and then we got Romagnoli sitting back, now that offside trap just failed and it's 1v1 Romagnoli versus 99 pace Insigne, it's deadly. So I would much rather get Villa, but Pioli's not.
I'm just going to look at the
or Bonera, Coach Bonera.
What a guy.
Yeah.
We ought to talk about that, actually.
Yeah, might as well, yeah.
Pioli and Giacomo Morelli, head coach and assistant, both have COVID. Now, perhaps it's not significant if Pioli has it because you can obviously give it to the assistant, but there is actually an admin problem with when the assistant tests positive too, because in order to actually, by the rules, coach a game in Serie A, you have to have a UEFA Pro license. And it's a good job that Bonera got his in September. Let's put it that way. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a head coach basically for the game against Napoli.
Did you hear what Pioli's been doing during training?
Watching them with drones.
Yeah, he's been on a drone and shouting through the PA system.
Absolutely incredible.
I love it.
I hope they publish a video of it or something.
It'd be hilarious. It'd be like a scene out of Futurama. Just be fantastic.
It'd be like, the Truman Show. Is that what I'm thinking? Where being controlled from it. Yeah. I'm just looking here at Napoli's last starting 11. They actually started Insigne on the left and Lozano on the right. Now, whether they sort of interchange during games. Forgot about Dries Mertens. He's pretty good.
Yeah, Mertens is fantastic. I would take him.
He's pretty good. So he might actually start up front instead, which would make sense. But obviously what they're going to try and do is probably exploit that gap between our left back and left centre back. It's what most teams seem to do, and they seem to do it relatively well. So that's why I think Gabbia might be a better fit, but I hope to be proven wrong on that if Romagnoli plays. Teo starts at left back.
Of course.
I agree that he much needed a rest because he looked knackered in some of those games.
Yeah.
He played a big run of them, and his one rest was the game against Sparta in the Europa League when we played Dalot on that side, and he got a goal and an assist. And
I don't disagree with any of that. However, I do think he plays better when Rebic is on the left wing.
So that's why I tweeted something out saying exact same. You saw when he come on, Rebic, against Hellas Verona, the chemistry that him and Teo struck up straight away as if they'd never been apart. That 1-2 that he did to put Teo through on goal. I mean, now I look back, we had the chances to win that Hellas game.
Of course. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we had 31 shots. We definitely had the chances.
But they know each other.
Before Rebic was injured and before Zlatan arrived, Teo was our main attacking threat because of that 1-2 with Rebic. I mean, they did it week in, week out. And then we lost that. And the first game back, we see it immediately. So it's still there.
I'm excited to see it.
We need Rebic to start, plain and simple. He needs to be on that left.
And he's fresh. He didn't go with Croatia, which I think is really admirable because Croatia could very easily have called him up. He's back. He's played for us. He's come off the bench and played, but no, he stayed and got back to full 100%. So he starts because Rafa's been away with Portugal under 21s, in my opinion. He should start there for. Kessie Benacer, obviously immovable at this stage. On the right, it's got to be Salamakers. Presume he's going to be fit enough. Just had a little problem.
I'm going to get a little crazy. I think we throw Lee out there. I know we only did it. Well, we've done it twice now for brief moments in games, but I like the way he looked there. And I like his link up with Zlatan. That's undeniable. They play well together, just like Teo and Rebic play together. So if that's our front three trident, Zlatan, Leao, and Rebic, I think it could be something special, and it confuses Napoli. That's not something they're looking into. They're looking into our normal lineup and the normal substitutions Pioli makes. They're not looking at the ones that don't happen often. They're not going to expect to see Leao on the right. So I think that might be a nice little change in pace.
I'd like to see it happen as well. I don't think it's going to happen. I think, if anything, the natural thing, and they're not going to do this because of the chemistry thing with Teo, but Rebic has played right wing for Croatia quite a lot. If anyone can shift over, it's probably him. Yeah. Could he work as a right winger moving forward? Maybe, because we know Calabria needs a little bit of protection, and Rebic will probably offer more even than Salamakers, and he would offer the goal threat, but probably don't fix what isn't broken. Yeah. I like Leao as an impact sub too. If things aren't going right, you could throw him in there, and because of his pace, his trickery, his kind of unpredictability, you're straight away on the edge of your seat. Hauge, apparently, they've been trying Hauge as a right winger during the international break.
I mean, he played there at Bodo. He played there briefly, and his stats were level as far as goals and assists with his performances on the left wing. So that's actually what I thought we signed him for originally, was to take that right wing spot. Obviously hasn't done it much, but I would love to see that. It's
Well,
just
if we
more versatility.
we obviously he's 20, isn't he? So he's 21 now. Sorry. We obviously think of him as impressionable, as in like we can mold him into something. So if we keep going with that, then who knows? Who knows? It might be something moving forward. Obviously, Ibra up front, Rebic on the left, Çalhanoğlu number 10.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it has to be, doesn't it? Really.
Mm-hmm.
He's still at the moment our best number 10. It's not even just that. It's everything that he does on and off the ball. It's so important for the system. Brahim can become that, but I don't think he's quite there yet.
Yeah. Interesting stat that came out, I think, right after the Hellas game. But since Hakan's arrival, he has the most goals of anyone on the team at 18. Ironically, Zlatan, who just arrived last January, is equal at 18 now as of last week.
And Kessie is on 18 as well.
Kessie is also. Oh, wow. Okay,
but he's 9 of them are penalties.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He scored 9 out of 10 penalties.
Few as that.
But I saw that whenever Kessie scores, we don't lose. We've won 14 and drawn 4. That's quite a good stat.
Salamaker still has never lost a game with us.
That is mental.
It really is.
Fantastic. Keep him on at all times.
Yeah, he's going to collapse mentally as soon as he gets that first L.
We've got to sell him back to Anderlecht immediately. The team, it turns out that he's the leader in the dressing room and not Ibra.
He was the one who told Zlatan to chill out after he sent a penalty to the fans outside the stadium.
Yeah, that's a joke. Score prediction.
I hate doing it, but I'm going to say 2-2.
Oh, I'd love a 2-2. That'd be fine. I think we see it shouldn't be like this because we're top of the league. I think we see avoiding defeat as a positive result. You know, like last year when we were on a really, really good run and so were Napoli, we went there and drew 1-1 and we came away from it thinking, okay, that'll do. You know, we got away without getting a bad, a psychologically damaging defeat or anything. It's only like if we were 2-0 up and drew 2-2 that it would be deemed as a bad result then.
Right. Well, the way I'm looking at it is we lose this game and we could very easily drop to 4th place, you know, and that just shows how tight it is at the top. So even though we're a few points clear in first, like that's not a safe position right now. It's not at all. So
now I do think that this game could potentially play into our hands. I'll give me a prediction in a second, but we're playing another team that plays football. Like, we're not playing a Hellas who are happy to score a goal and set up with a low block. Udinese did the exact same. Roma were very happy for a point when they came and played us. You know, these are teams that Napoli will be looking to win. And what's our strength? The counter-attack. So I'm hoping that we can find some gaps and we'll see. But not having our coach on the bench is a bit of a weird one. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. My prediction, I honestly think we lose. I think we lose 3-1.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Well, I got to, you know, maybe it'd be better next season when we start. I'm going to do a points table for our predictions. But, I just got a bad feeling. I've just got a bad feeling about it.
These are the games that – actually, there's really – I don't know what I was going to say. I was going to say that they're not the ones you need to win, but given the situation, it absolutely is a must-win. I think – all games are must-wins, actually. So I don't know what I'm saying at this point.
I think it's a must-not-lose. I think it'd be bad
if
we
lost. That's a good way to put it.
Leapfrog us. But I don't want us to go into it thinking, let's get a 0-0 out of this. Because that I want it to be a good game. If we lose 3-2 and we look amazing, so be it. You know, we've seen enough
What I was
evidence.
getting at was you need to pick up points against the smaller sides. That's who we've been dropping them against. So we could still finish even first with a loss here. But I don't know. Regardless, even if we do lose, we'll still be above Juve and Inter next week. So
that'll do.
Nice. Yeah.
Should we touch on days?
Yeah, should we touch on the Lille game on Thursday? I mean, we'll record again, but maybe
record again.
I obviously haven't discussed this with you yet, but Thursday is Thanksgiving, so I don't.
Oh.
Madison and I, if we'll even be on, I might be traveling. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
But should we touch on that at all or no?
Nah. Well, because I'll mention it next week, whoever I do it with. Can mention it if you want. I mean,
I'm scared.
Yeah, based on what we saw the first time round, they look like our kryptonite. They're like pace and power, just like us, except they did it a lot better. I think we'll take them more seriously in terms of the team selection. We probably won't rotate the front four.
It'll be the exact same lineup that we use against Napoli, I bet.
I think we know that we can't lose that.
Yeah.
We can't lose that little game, otherwise we really are in the... But then again, I think it's a case of we beat Celtic and Sparta. Again, we're fine. So that one maybe isn't a crucial result. However, yeah, I'm a bit scared. Yaziki, what a marksman. Renato Sanchez, incredible midfielder. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Anyway, questions. Alex Garcia. I see a lot of Milanisti support Italian teams in the Champions League. I'm of the idea that we shouldn't support our direct rivals. Could you tell us your thoughts on the matter? Whether it affects us or favours us, Italian teams doing well in European
Who asked this?
Alex Garcia.
Alex Garcia, you are a smart man. I'm right there with you. Fuck them all. It's just Milan.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't like it. It's it mattered to me when coefficient existed. When we were fighting for that 4th Champions League spot, we needed the teams to do well. So that was when I was like, cool, I want Juve in the final and then to lose it every year. But now that we get 4 and there's no coefficient and it doesn't matter where they finish, then I don't need Italian pride. I want Milan pride. So I hope Roma crash out. I hope Inter finish 4th in their group, and I hope Juve finish 4th in their group. I don't want any of them to do good. That's me.
I couldn't actively root for a rival club in any game. I mean, yes, the story was fairy tale for football, but I wanted Atalanta to get slapped by PSG.
Yeah.
I just did. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Juve and Inter's different. They are historical rivals and have been for over 100 years now. I don't feel as animated towards like Lazio.
Because I know they're not really doing much.
I don't mind seeing Lazio do well, and I wouldn't actively root for them, so don't take it that way. But the reason being, if I see Lazio do well in the Champions League, having sort of had a couple of good seasons where they built something, it gives me faith that we can do that.
Yeah.
They can beat Dortmund at home in the Champions League, so can we. When our time comes, hopefully next season. So it gives me a bit of faith. Same with Atalanta in a way with the project that they have. I'm like, if they can compete in the Champions League, then all we need to do is get back there and let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never actively root for a rival club, no. But it might be a bit different if like Sampdoria did it one year or something, a team that really isn't a rival at all. Then I might be like, go on. Like,
the biggest issue for me with Atalanta was that they were in San Siro in Champions League before us.
Yeah,
it just burns. And the prospect of us never playing Champions League in San Siro again, if we build this new stadium like that, it doesn't sit well with me. So,
I remember, was it the first? Do you remember when Leicester won the league basically and got into the Champions League, and they went on quite a run in the Champions League?
Yeah, actually, I was excited for that, but I don't.
Now, obviously, they're another English team. They're not a rival to Huddersfield or anything, but at the same time, I think most English fans got behind that because it didn't damage them in any way. They were never going to become regulars in the Champions League.
Well, and I think exactly. Everyone knew that this was a one-off fairy tale and it was a cool story to root for, Everyone had their team, and then I was like, all right, well, it'd be cool if Leicester goes a little bit further. But no one anticipated a Leicester Champions League win, Then again, no one anticipated a Premier League win. So it's interesting, but I don't think that one holds as much.
Ibrahim Umar, how concrete... Now, I think the answer to this question straight off the bat is not very, but we'll talk about the idea of it. How concrete is Milan's desire to sign Mauro Icardi? I can't remember if we touched on it or not, but what do you feel about the idea of him being Zlatan's heir, let's say?
Prior to Zlatan's arrival, I was all for it. After Zlatan's arrival, it doesn't make any sense. I think he's a different profile and he doesn't fit the system very well. It would be funny, but I don't see him as a long-term answer. I see if we get him, we have to rebuild the team, and we just have too much groundwork laid out already. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, I don't think we're going to go for a player like Haaland, but that is the profile of who needs to replace Zlatan. That's who's going to fit into our system the best, is someone like him, not someone like Mario Icardi.
At the time that he was leaving Inter, and there were some rumours about him coming to us because his wife Wanda really liked living in Milan. I did, but now I don't know. Don't get me wrong, he scored goals for PSG. I still think he's a fantastic finisher, and I think he'd score goals for us. But you're right, completely different profile. He's not he got given the inter-captaincy and they all wanted him stripping of it because of the way that he behaved. That's not the actions of the kind of bloke that you want to come in and upset the locker room.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say no for now. I think there are better profiles out there. Rocky Award. He asked a question about Çalhanoğlu's renewal. We've done it to death. Basically, there's been no movement on that. We still don't know if he's going to renew. There's still some distance between what we're offering and what he wants. But the second part of the question is an interesting one. What do you think the cascading effect will be when you have players like Theo Benacer and Kessié making around the 2 million mark? Now, that's one thing that we haven't really mentioned in detail, is this idea that if we do keep Çalhanoğlu and sort of compromise on a 5 mil a year thing, I think the other star players in the team are going to be like, I want my slice of the pie.
Yep, exactly. And it started with Zlatan's arrival and then GGO's renewal. Now we have players in that upper echelon of payment. And we get a third in Hakan, then it's like the floodgates crack a little bit. And then Teo, and then Benacer, and then Kessié, and then Romagnoli. I mean, Romagnoli's captain. He deserves more on merit alone, you know? So it's like we're going to get into those high wage bill, which is the downside of a successful project of ours. You go for young hidden gems that you could get on the cheap for cheap wages and hope they work out. Well, what happens when they work out? Now they need money. You got to pay them what they're worth. So it was always going to happen whether we went for older experienced players or found successful young players and built them up. It's just where it's at. The good thing is we got them young and we've saved on that wage so that we can afford it when the time comes. Now the thing is the time now or is the time later? It's up to the management to decide that.
I'm glad that there are people paid to make those decisions, and I'm glad that we don't have to make them. I think we're putting so many eggs in the basket of the Champions League. If we get into the Champions League, we're going to have a lot more money to play around with. And that's when you can say, all you guys who are owed pay rises, who we want to be part of our core, moving us forward in the Champions League season by season, you can get your money and it's not as harmful for us. Now, the reason we were trying to trim the wages so much was to be compliant with financial fair play. All of a sudden, if we're back in the Champions League, the shackles with FFP are off a bit more. So then, because we know Elliot have the money, we know they're a multi-billion dollar, hundreds of billions, I think, isn't it? Fund. So we know that they have the money. It's just about being compliant with stuff. And if we do get back into the Champions League, then the problems should solve themselves because we'll have a bigger pot of money to pull from. But if we don't, then we have some problems. I think we do have some problems. We'll see. Maybe Theo Benacer, Kessié, etc. will be patient for just that one more year because we showed faith in them to begin with. But you're right. I mean, Romagnoli's renewal, there's a question about next. But if you think about it, Donnarumma, if he does sign an $8 million a year deal, Theo is going to be looking at that thinking, really, is he worth 4 times more to this team than me? When you put it like that, all of a sudden, I'm like, I want to be Teo's agent saying, I'll campaign for him to get a pay rise. He's bloody earned it, But yeah, anyway, Adolfo, should we cash in on Alessio Romagnoli right now while we could still get a decent amount for him, maybe to fund Milenkovic as a replacement?
It's such a tough one, and it's something I encountered in the fantasy land of FIFA, actually, during this international break. But that was the only player I sold in my career mode, only because the offer was ridiculous. It was like 80 million from Tottenham or something stupid that'll never happen. But I was like, yeah, do that. But it's tough because he's probably the most out-of-form player in the squad right now. But he's still good and definitely one of the best. He's just not our best center back now, but he's our captain. He's shown us faith for half a decade. There's just a lot of non-performance related things that make me never want him to leave. And that's not how you run a football club. That's a really good way
of putting it. Yeah.
You look at things how, Juventus sent Alessandro Del Piero out the door. He was old. He was no longer a top player. It made sense for them. But our fan base ridicules them for sending their star legend to India or wherever he went. I don't remember. What was India, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I don't want to see that happen to Romagnoli. Obviously, we're talking about selling him while the iron's hot. But I don't know, man. I hate to say yes, and I don't even know if my brain's saying this. I'm so torn on that. Like, I don't have to make that decision.
No, you don't. One thing I will say, you're totally right about the non-playing factors thing. And also, I think, he deserves time. like you say, he's been here half a decade. He deserves a bit more time to get his form back. He can't possibly keep performing this badly. That's the way I look at it. He's got receipts to show for being a good defender in Serie. I think he will only get better as the weeks go on. And then the renewal thing will become, a bit less of a debate and a bit more of a how much rather than if we do it at all. Yeah. One hypothetical Football Manager FIFA scenario, whatever you call it, that I would potentially be all for is if we decided to sell him for a chunk of cash, given the player that he is, given the international experience, the number of games that he's had, that he's captain of us and stuff. You got to be looking around the 40 mil mark, and then you would put all of that into a replacement like Deo Upamecano, who has a 40
and
mil.
I would only sell him outside of Italy.
Clause. Yeah, same. Barca or Atletico Madrid want him. Personally, think he'd be really good for one of the top teams in La Liga because they tend to sit deeper and contain. And we saw under Gattuso, that's what he thrived doing.
Yeah.
Highline teams, he ain't going to do. Like, going to the Bundesliga, I don't think he'd do so well. I think he'd flounder. But, yeah, would be if we sold him and signed a replacement that we knew was probably going to be a guaranteed upgrade and one that fit the project. And Upamecano is the ideal mould. Milenkovic is probably the ideal figure in that sense too.
But since we're on the topic of defenders, I mean, Simon Kjaer, obviously our best center back at the time. He's also our oldest center back. How many years do we have with him? Is it worth signing Romagnoli to make an improvement there and then being down a center back 2 years later or needing a replacement 1 year later, something like that? Wouldn't it make more sense to just get that third center back to replace Kjaer when he's eventually done or downgrades instead of getting rid of Romagnoli?
I'm hoping the issue of replacing Kjaer is something we don't have to think about until a couple of years down the line at least, because he's got a contract until 2022. There's already talks of extending it. I did that interview with his agent, Mikkel Beck, and he was basically saying, no, it's not something that we're going to think about now. I don't think we'd talk about extending him until the last year of his contract, to be honest. But I think given that his game isn't massively based on pace and, I don't think we're going to see the sharp decline that you might do from some centre-backs. I think he's playing the best football of his career at 31. Let's put it that way. So I think him staying till 33, 34 wouldn't be a problem. And then who knows, there might be an option. Gabia might be a completely different player by then. He might be the guy when he's 23, we might have signed Kabak. We might, and there's so many different things that can happen in 2-3 years time. We'll see. But in terms of the immediate future, I'm with you. I think Romagnoli gets renewed. I just don't see anywhere that he leaves us. I really don't. I think it'd be a shock. I think it would be a big, big shock if we were to say, no, you're not good enough, you go in. Right. So, Chalaboglu, you think it's Marcus, isn't it? Marcus Thuram is a good fit for Milan. Do you think there's any truth to those rumours? Did we mention this last week?
I don't think we did. Or maybe,
no.
I don't remember. I know we've talked about it, but I don't know if we did it on here or not. I think the rumors are probably true. I think we've proven that we look at a lot of profiles for a lot of positions, and more often than not, there's a little bit of fire where there's a little bit of smoke. So I would anticipate it being true. However, I don't know if it's something we're going to go forward with all the way, Do I think he's a good fit? He's not a bad one. I don't know. I'm torn on it. I haven't seen enough, to be honest. So
you can't possibly say that he's a bad fit when we already have exactly two of his kind of player in the squad already. I mean, he's a left winger who can play striker or vice versa. That makes me think, no, he's probably not a good fit for us right now in terms of what we need. But as a player, we've already got two of him in the squad, so you can't say, no, rubbish, we need someone who can do one or the other when Leao and Rebic are both sort of occupying that role. If we were to bring him in as a straight-up centre-forward to be Ibra's deputy, I'm absolutely all for it. But at the same time, I think there are probably players for the same price tag who are out-and-out centre-forwards who make a bit more sense. Like, we have actually been linked quite strongly with Daniel Marlin, who we've talked about. Just something about him, whenever I watch him, I'm like, God, we need this guy, Same league, Myron Boadu as well. Is at Alkmaar, he is, for the same reasons, just a really exciting profile. We need to make a decision, basically, what we want to do moving forward. Do we try go for another big man? another target man who's going to do the kind of things that Zlatan does, try occupy multiple defenders and stuff? Or do we go for the full-on counter-attack, fluid football where you perhaps sacrifice a bit of the physicality for someone who's quick, makes runs off the shoulder, can finish, all that sort of stuff? Or do you go for an all-round centre-forward like a Haaland who probably costs you an awful lot of money? I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. I think Pioli will have a big say in it in terms of what he wants, because I don't think we can go out and sign another Zlatan. So,
well, I don't think we're actually looking seriously at, striker profiles until the end of the season, until we know, A, are we going to keep Zlatan of the year? And B, do we have Champions League? Because that's the deciding factor for everything. Like we mentioned with renewals, that's also the deciding factor if we can splash money on a big name player, or if we even want to. Mm-hmm. So I don't think any Zlatan replacement talks is going to happen until the end of the season, and we really know where we stand. There might be feelers going out there, like I said, a little smoke, a little fire, but I don't think anything's concrete right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Make lots of inquiries. This is the thing. Like they say that those who worked in football say that it's about 1% of the names that they're actually looking at make it into the media. So there's probably a whole host of strikers that we've got on our list that are sort of for all different scenarios that might happen that have not seen the light of the newspapers yet. But the Thuram thing, I really like him as a player. Don't get me wrong. I really like that Gladbach team. I think that Alisson play that they've got, and midfielder Dennis Zakaria. They've got a good team, like with some Briel Mbolo, who I've mentioned before. He can play right wing or striker. He's not actually having as good a season, I've noticed this season, but they're a talented group. And Thuram's finally got a France call up, so must be doing something right. Final two then from the same guy, Akinde. Number one, should Milan try and buy back Locatelli?
No. That's all I got. No. I don't like him. I don't want him.
If I like Locatelli, I always have. I liked him when he was with us. I think we gave up on him a bit too quickly.
I think he gave up on us.
I think
he's mentally weak.
He said himself that he mentally wasn't ready, But then he almost blamed it on the fans. That interview that he did recently said Milan will always be his home. He will never say bad about the club. Ought to tell his agent that. But said, scored that amazing goal against Juve, scored that one against Sassuolo, and all of a sudden fans expected that every week. No, we didn't. We just kind of...
I think there was a small percentage that really did. Being on Twitter, I'd say all the time, Locatelli's going to score a screamer today. And I'm like, no, he's probably going to concede a penalty. But,
I always liked it.
I think he's improved since he's left, but I don't. Where do we put him? Why bring him back? We have Benacer, who's going to be around for 8 years. We got Tonali, who's going to be around for 10 to 15. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, we got Tonali. A name I'm going to throw out there because we're inevitably going to be linked with him again at some point. We were linked with him over the summer. Plays for FC Nantes. He's called Imran Louza. Absolutely fantastic midfielder, holding midfielder, probably would be absolutely perfect for that fourth spot. But also remember Tommaso Pobega, he's doing really well on loan at Spezia, and he come out today and said that he wants to come back. So wouldn't surprise me if that happens either. But yeah, the Locatelli thing, we kind of made our bed by going for Tonali. I don't think, God, don't get me wrong, I would love to be able to have Kessie Benacer and then Locatelli Tonali as a backup duo, but it ain't happening. You don't have four 40 million euro midfielders on your books. It just doesn't happen. They'd all be unhappy. Final one like this. We've talked about Ibra's replacement long term. Didn't mention him. Wanted to mention him now because we've been linked with him either today or yesterday properly. Belotti.
I'm so over this guy, man. Just rot away at Torino. You're at a trash club. You're a little bit better than them. So you look great, but he's not.
Is that a good season?
He has a good season the first half of every season, or the second half, whichever. But he only had one full good season, and then he wasn't worth the 100 million that Chiara wanted then, and he's not worth the 70 that he wanted the following season. He wasn't worth the 40 he wanted the season after that, and he's not worth the 15 that people want him for now. He's just...
He probably is worth 15 million to me. But people think of him because he's been around in Serie A so long now that he's 30. He's not. He's 25. There's still some longevity there.
There's plenty of time for him to improve, but
he could do an Immobile
posture and straightens that back. Why does he have a hunch? He's 25 years old.
Do you know the players who wear the
The bra.
You know,
yeah.
they look like training bras because they've got the stuff and they've got the thing.
It looks like he has one on at all times.
Constantly. Now, I feel really bad for saying that, but I get why people still throw his name out there. He's been a consistent season-by-season scorer in Serie A in terms of the amount of goals he's scored, maybe inconsistent during the seasons. He's a Milan fan. He's an out-and-out centre-forward, which is probably what we'd be looking for. He's got the physicality. He's got the...
he is on 6 goals right now, okay.
The finishing. Yeah, he's on 6 goals this season. He seems to be... I mean, his contract runs out in 2022, so it's kind of a contract year for him in a way. Because he either finally gets his big move. If he gets his big move away from Torino, he could be an Immobile because that's what happened to him. Obviously,
last year, he was 20 goals below what Immobile scored, just saying.
But that's probably still quite a lot of goals.
Yeah, it was 16.
Yeah, because Immobile bags.
I'm just going through his last 3 seasons. Obviously, this season's too early to really count, but 16 goals last year, 15 the year prior, 10 goals the year before that, and 26 the year before that.
He had an injury that year.
That was the year everyone thought he was hype, but obviously he hasn't returned to those levels.
No, he hasn't.
I'm not saying 15 goals in a season's bad, but
you need another striker who's scoring 15 goals a season to supplement it.
Exactly.
I don't think Zlatan is going to score 30 this year. I think he'll probably somewhere around the 20 mark. I think he will slow down a little bit.
I think he breaks 20, though. I think
yeah.
He scored 10 in half a season last year. He's been injured already, and in 7 games has got 8. So there's no reason to think he's not going to get at least 20. He's halfway there now.
We talked about last season how, on that post-lockdown run, our front 4 combined for what was it, like 33 goals? Ibrahim and he got 10. Çalhanoğlu ended up with 10. Rebic ended up with 11, whatever. And how we're probably just a right winger away from sort of having a really spread goal-scoring threat. Perhaps it might change in that we're now looking for 2 centre-forwards who can spread the load in terms of goals because Zlatan's Zlatan.
Wasn't it... God, I don't really remember. It was either 93, 94, or like 95, 96, but we won the league with 35 goals scored or something dumb like that.
93, 94, I think.
Surely we're close to that already for this season, right? Like we're halfway there, if not more. I don't know. Let me check.
We scored
16 already, so we're basically halfway there, which is pretty nuts.
Yeah, we also didn't concede any goals ever that season. I think we conceded like 11 goals or something stupid.
We're at 9 already this year.
Yeah.
So.
That's it, I think. Don't have any more questions.
We're well past the hour mark, so.
Are we? Right. Well, we're boring people probably at this point. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher or at Kilpin Chronicle. Remember to follow at the number 1, SempreMilan, because we've got that going as a backup at the moment. We're tweeting all the news, all the features, all the other content on there. Pod tweets are on there. Might do a giveaway soon to try boost the follower count on that one. Shouldn't have said that's why we do it, but we're only on like just over 1,000 and the old one was on 30k, so we're just trying to reach more people. Been joined by Anthony Torgrud.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Like this video, please. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And also subscribe. We could see that the majority of viewers are not subscribed, which is a little weird. So you're watching anyways, you might as well hit subscribe. And yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, and thank you, Patrick, for coming on. And yeah, thank you for listening, everyone. We'll catch you in a week's time.
Andrea Conti, bella palla per Rebic. Rebic, Ibra. Rebic, il tiro. Gol!